Gravity. Hello, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. All right, Jord. So let's look at the games we finished. This game, what I just kind of got beat, and in this game we're gonna go over because this is a slow board win all the way. I had the board, so to speak. Okay, this was the earlier of the two games we're looking at. This is the earlier of the two games that which we're looking. Let's set it to play. But first, just remind me where or how this game developed. Alright, so yeah, Black had this exchange. Go ahead. And now Black is just up a piece. Some simplifications that helped, including now pass pawn on h3. And then another piece drop after that. Black's low on time. As you can see, my opponent's going to play this out. And this is a theme, though. My opponent probably, at first says, darn this guy, played it all the way to the end. If you think about it, though, say the equal number of pawns, like in this case, 3 pawns per side. And as we know, Black is up a full rook. This is a crushing win in terms of slow play. And in most situations. But in Blitz, this is something to try to play out. An active rook is actually quite difficult to understand or quickly understand in situations like this. 2 rooks versus 1, yeah, I get it. But an active rook can cause Black to scratch his head and say, maybe that's this move, and there are mistakes to be made along the way in these situations. In general, the opportunity is to double rooks and then force some kind of trade, but White's king is secluded, and if I play rook d7, my opponent's just going to play rook a8, right? Just to say that a lone active rook in an endgame can cause a lot of mayhem and confusion. Now, Black's going to win this on the board, given enough time, but I'm low on time, so my opponent plays on, and oftentimes I feel like situations where one side is winning by a lot, that things stretch out a bit. I think we've all thought that at some point. Maybe not we've all, but experienced chess players have probably come across that in their thinking. Sure. In this situation, I'm going to say White really had the reason to go for the gusto with his rook and 3 pawns and king, and to that fact, watch what happens. Black slip. What did I slip up here with? Rook takes g3, check. Yeah, because that's a pawn and a rook for 2 rooks, and now I probably still have the win, but I got a mosey on over to c6, then d5, and here 1 pawn, then another pawn, and these pawns are sitting here challenging my opponent to capture 1 when the other will now jet forward 2 spaces and become a queen. Black still has the win in terms of the board, but White's got him beat on the clock. All these are accurate enough moves that they are moves that seriously contend for the best result for either side. And my opponent played that rook versus 2 rooks. It's something that occurs with rooks versus 2 rooks. If you're on the side with just 1 rook, but your rook is active, you might make a little bit more of a go of it than one would otherwise think. So that's what I'm trying to get across here. So Queen to h1 or pawn to h1 equals queen, and then of course this is an absolute win with enough time. And I might have even had it because I had time on my clock, but this formation where the kings are opposing each other directly, and there's a queen on one side or the other, will draw and will stalemate and draw the side that's defending. So just a bonehead move. Also in the last few seconds, sometimes people make mistakes. I guess it was a tough loss to take. And the game was okay. Otherwise, some blue moves going on and accuracy in the high 70s. I'm not gonna go over the whole game. Just I'll go over this game instead. Okay. So we have the game ready. Now, let's say. That's a chest cadence, and we're working on turning the heat off. Two different things. Excuse me, folks. I have that most days. No, I do germ track. I am aware that I wipe my nose and I wash and I rinse many times. I wash twice a day, so I don't know. if you see this and saw me do that, and then you see me later, you're gonna be fine because I keep my hands clean. All right. First with the review. Almost 80 against 85. So let's go over this game. Just taking a look at the moves. Yeah. So no, there's no section of like extended botched moves. We're playing the Queen's Pawn game. This is the London system one, d4, d5, and White brings the knight to c3. White brings the knight to c3. This is called the London system. I chose here to treat it as though it were a Queen's Gambit. Well, that strays from my usual response, pawn to c5. I would normally, let's take a look here. Pawn to c5, any good? Yeah, it's alright. So pawn to c5 is a real move. As we sometimes say, as we used to say. But I played pawn to c6. A little more solid and so on. Capture towards the center here. It's almost like a Queen's Gambit, a semi-Slav, and then a King's Gambit, but also in some ways a Danish Gambit. This is like the mother of all forced Gambit openings. I'm serious. This here is not all that different from a King's Gambit in some ways, opening up the h4 to e1 diagonal, but then also gambiting the f3 pawn instead of capturing back the e4 pawn. The e4 pawn's allowed to do more damage. But this pawn on the third rank is also a feature of e4, e5, d4, e takes d4, c3, d takes c3. Yes! In that case, the Danish Gambit is on the board. What else do we have? Well, it's a Queen's Pawn opening that involves a Gambit, so the Queen's Gambit is at least knocking at the door real hard. What am I waiting for? Let's go. Let's see what happened here. Pawn takes f3. That's the best move. Queen takes f3. I might not have thought, but this is essence of Muzio Gambit to it. Although one probably would say that after knight takes f3 as well, if you really wanted to. In the Muzio Gambit, this knight will be gone, and the queen will capture on f3. It's an extension of the King's Gambit that leads to the gambiting of an entire knight. by white, and it's a scary thing. In exchange for being down a full piece, white gets most often a really strong, crazy strong attack on black's king side, especially at f7. So anyway, it's a great part of the king's gambit. Boris Spassky has used it successfully against Tigran Petrosian. So former world chess champion Boris Spassky used the Muzio gambit against former world chess champion Tigran Petrosian. I want to say I'm not certain if it were Petrosian. I'm about 95% certain. Spassky, that I know for sure. And the game is diagrammed by international master Andrew Martin on a chess DVD called The ABCs of Chess Openings. It's a DVD I recommend. It gives a broad perspective of many of the major chess openings, and is at just that right balance between too much and not enough information. Is a good DVD for learning beginners and for intermediates. Many intermediates. Advanced players might know some of the stuff in it, but you can always check it out. It's a great. The ABCs of Chess Openings is by international master Andrew Martin. Hold on, guys. Okay, so where were we? Knight f6. Well, knight f6 just misses the freestanding pawn. I could capture on d4, but then bishop e3 scares the queen. The bishop is protected, so the queen's got to scurry somewhere safe. Maybe there's checks here that are effective. And then that allows white to castle queenside at any moment. So yeah, it's a pawn in material, but I'm gonna play for initiative by playing bishop to g4 instead. And notice now, though the queen is attacking the bishop at g4, and the bishop is attacking or undermining the defender of that, is attacking and undermining the defender of g4. This is it's one of these screwy things with knights. It's kind of like frustrating for the opposing player. I played knight to d7. Now undermining the defender doesn't work. Bishop takes f6. Knight takes f6, and at no point in time is the bishop on g4 unprotected on white's move. e6 is one of those sneaky moves we learn to be. When e6 as black, making the move e6 here, one of those sneaky moves we learn to accept with experience. It doesn't knock the door down, and it is the middle game. There's queens and knights and stuff going. There might be a pin after this queenside castle, but it's a pin that's only against a rook at the end of things. And then there's all that stuff going on. But e6 says I'm still gonna play best move. I would not have made this move 5 years ago. It doesn't bash through quite as strongly as a pin that also attacks the bishop on g5, or queen b6 against both b2, attacking both b2 and d4. It doesn't do that, but it's the best move. We gotta get this bishop involved in the game. There's no way. Black has no future. Maybe try this. Oh, and if he messes up, I'll have a full piece. Okay, but I'm telling you, if this bishop doesn't get into the game somehow, you're not gonna castle kingside. So my more experienced self realized e6. Played pawn to e6 here. Stops the knight for a long time and makes way for not to that, but makes way for certain useful bishop moves. Bishop b4. Alright, so a little bit after a good amount of pressure, white slips here. I was playing for double pawns, which would have been good. But I think what occurred turned out to be even better. Let's see. B takes c3, knight to e4, right? I was looking at this. It's not really a fork because it doesn't end up in. I guess it is a fork. It's a fork that doesn't happen to win a whole bunch of material right away. Pins on, but then knight captures g3, and black has to make. Black's knight captures g3, and black's got too many threats looming. Let's play it through. Well, just actually before that, white needs to take time out to capture on c3 just to close to level, still be a pawn behind, but knight f4, and after bishop takes d8, then knight takes g3, and there's too much going on against white. Black can capture on d8 in a number of ways. White has to take time out to capture on c3. The rook on d1 is helping white maybe lose the exchange, and the knight on g3 is attacking rook on h1, and he might very well get away with it this time. So this position is crumbling against white. This is a positional collapse. They have so many pieces, sort of working against white all at once. Captures with the queen is a better try than, like I said. I think after b takes c3, I guess then it's not looming, but after b takes c3, black has way too many options. So we'll capture the rook first, and then move on to the pin against the king. So instead of being up in exchange, we're up a full rook. H7's a good move. I think it's not listed as better. The reason being is, as I played h6. Now, white must relinquish his, her, or they pin against the f6 knight, or all the other options to exchange in a equal way, or just get captured on g5, whatever it is. I'll get a lot of this, folks, is trade or better. Here, when black plays h6, he's gonna get maybe not trade or better. He's gonna get gain territory or better. As my opponent knows to back off, I gain territory, but that's not bad. Better would have been an equal value piece trade. Still better would have been some kind of material victory or gain, a material gain. Right. So we now have knight to d5. Remember, this is driven by material. Knight to d5 shows that black can just continue to trade pieces. This time there's no way out of it for white. Move the bishop, move the queen to d2. Perhaps I'm still going to go for this trade on e3 and just whittle things down and have an extra rook. I think more broadly speaking, I'm not sure it's been shown against this yet. White should be playing to open the board, more or less. White's, so here we have this move. And yeah, this is hard to combat. So maybe it hasn't gotten to the point where white can open the board, but white has some open squares on his side. So right now, the pawns, if maybe I have extra pawn or two, an extra pawn or two. These pawns are only working to shield the black king. I would recommend maybe g4, and then g5. Maybe black could fall prey to some kind of tactic. I'm not eyeing it up quite right away, but when the pawns on the h file somehow vacate, then these rooks are in opposition, and maybe white in some fever dream can capture on h8, king moves out of the way, capture on d8, and that's game. So just in general, I think white should be aiming to push pawns up the board, clear files, and just in general clear the board. This goes too with the idea that the minor piece setup is 2 knights against the 2 bishops. So we want to just clear the whole board, or not the whole board, but clear much of the board. I was thinking about my mouse clicks. Clear much of the board, and then and then use your long range pieces as a strategy for white. But we haven't let white in to do that quite yet. White hasn't had the chance, because I've been pressuring and playing aggressive chess, and so no more bishop pair, and see a move like bishop e2 gonna help restrict the knight on the king side, so I like that. That's pretty cool. But I would still suggest g4, and maybe you can throw in h5 some way. The c pawn looks like it could help make a hungry attempt at the center. Part of the issue why I would do that is because this bishop has places to go. He's almost developed on the back rank, as they say. They're called developed on the back rank. And the rook can even slide to h3 and be powerful that way. All right, here we go. Black pressures a queen trade. Pressures material gain. White responds with potential discovered attack. Queen takes d4, winning material. And now it's time for black to push forward and prove how to win with overwhelming force at the queen trade. Bishop's gone, and black has a rook and 2 pawns in advantage. Still have to be a little bit careful. You don't want the opponent's rook to start just picking up pawns on the 7th rank, so I chose rook to d7 rook to d7 kind of puts a stop to that. e6 looks weak, and that's the only one though, so I push e6 to make a deal out of it. Now you can't usually lead a pawn from in front, And I thought, well, hey, I've got an extra rook. I'll be able to do this somehow. Yeah, but it kind of introduced more um, problems than I had to. I thought between my rook on d7, cutting off the king from any kind of action on the king side, that I'd just, push this pawn forward and be promoting somehow. But I underestimated how strongly my opponent can control the e-file. You don't normally promote a pawn. A rook does not normally defend a pawn to promotion from ahead. There are ways that it can work, but not always. Here I think I could have had here rook to b1 would have been nice. That's one of the themes when you're defending or promoting pawn from in front. Usually you have to have extra material. Rook to b1. I was trying to think of this during the game. I'm maybe nervous about my time. Whatever it is. Rook to b1 check. King to takes b1, right? That's better than anything else. And then rook to d1 check. King goes back to b2. Pawn to e1 equals queen. And most likely rook takes e1. Rook takes e1. And black is the only side on the board with a piece. This is, it might seem like I'm overemphasizing this, but this is important. Yeah, no, this is why in the game I didn't choose to do this, because king to c3, and then what? What do I do then? I don't have this sacrifice check on b1 to give me time. I can't say anything else. Oh wait, no, I played the wrong move. Yeah, I might have it. There it is with black move. Rook to b1 check. Rook to d1 check. Pawn to e1. And then, yeah, taking the queen is, I don't know, probably the best move anyway. And black will just... So this was a better way. And I'm sort of thinking to myself, I assert that I would have seen that with slow time controls. That's what I wanted to say. It's helpful to notice that, see, like where exactly I am in my development as a chess player. Here we are. So as the game finished itself, I took this other route to victory, which probably is still fine. But my opponent did not have to trade on g1 here. And it could have been more complicated. Got all these pawns in the way, you just have to be careful. I was glad to make checkmate, because white is looking for a cat and mouse kind of stalemate. This game. All right. All right. I think that's gonna be it, folks. I will try to remember to tell you when I'm doing my last eval. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity.
Have a great night.